Hello, and welcome to day 4 of our Evolution of Work Summit week. We've had some amazing panels, and this one is going to be just as good, if not maybe even better than the ones we've already had. So today we are here to talk about being a parent and having a career at the same time, and what we can do within companies to make sure that people aren't just able to be there and show up, but are able to really thrive. So I'm going to let the panel all introduce themselves. Corey, if you'd like to go first.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Corey Hunter. I am a senior people business partner for the go-to-market division at Camunda, which is a company that specializes in process orchestration. I am a mom to 3 kiddos. I have twin daughters and their younger little sister, a wife to my husband, and I'm an avid bookworm and love doing anything creative.
Amazing. Harriet?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Harriet Gibbons. I'm an engineering manager within BA Systems. I really enjoy the balance of having a daughter and having a career. And I also play roller derby, which is a contact sport on roller skates.
No way. We could talk for 10 minutes about that. I would love to know what that is. And Tom?
Yeah, love to know more about roller derby. Thanks, Beth. Great to be part of this. Hi, everyone. My name's Tom. I work for Microsoft. Quick intro, and probably most importantly, I'm a husband. I'm a dad. My wife runs her own successful business, recruitment business in London, and we've got 8-year-old twins at home. So Corey, part of the twin family as well. 20 years in recruitment, 14 of those here at Microsoft. I currently lead 2 teams of recruiters here. One focuses on our sales and marketing hiring, the other on director and senior level people manager hiring across EMEA as well. And perhaps most pertinent for this conversation, I'm our HR sponsor for our family's employee resource group, which is just over 1,000 members for us in the UK right now and growing every day. So looking forward to this.
Wow, that's amazing. And I wonder what the statistics are on us having 2 twin parents on one call. That's pretty impressive. I always get overexcited at the start of these and forget to introduce myself. So hi, I'm Beth. I'm the Director of Growth at Flexer, which is a platform where you can get discovered by candidates for absolutely anything that you're interested in, whether that's progression and growth opportunities, or whether that's flexible working, or whether that's being family friendly. So that's our skin in this game, is we really believe that there's a place for absolutely everyone, and that there's a company that's going to suit each and every individual. And the more transparent we are about what's going on within a business, the better we can bring in aligned teams and everyone succeeds. So I'd love to start us off with a bit of a look back through how your organizations have changed their approaches to supporting parents in the last few years. It's definitely become more and more of a big topic. And Corey, I'd love to come to you first on this. Like, has it changed a lot in the last few years, or what's been going on?
Yes, what I've really seen with Camunda is that we've taken the approach to build out multiple ERGs to help support those working parents that are transitioning back into the workforce. We've also upgraded our flexible parental leave. So what this does is it allows team members to be able to take time off in a way that really best supports their family. So for example, what I've seen some individuals do is they'll take those in blocks, where maybe they take a portion of the parental leave very early on, as soon as the child is birthed or adopted. And then they may want to come back to work for a few weeks or a few months, and then take another block later on in the child's life. And what we've found is that really allowing that flexibility has given parents the autonomy to be able to build out the plan that works best for them, so that they feel most supported both in their parenting and in their work life.
Amazing, because probably completely unrecognizable to what the world of work would have looked like 10 years ago, right? Yeah. Tom, have you seen big changes at Microsoft in the recent years?
Yeah, I think so, and some similar themes to Corey there. We regularly, like everyone else, I guess, regularly review the offerings that we provide to all our employees, parents included. Fair few years ago, we enhanced our maternity and paternity leave and pay to make sure we were up to date with what the market was doing, but also what people needed. But in terms of the approach, I think no great surprise. I'm going to talk a bit about the pandemic, because that's probably the one thing recently that completely changed work for probably nearly all of us. We're really lucky here. We've always operated a really strong hybrid model. So perhaps that shift where working from home became a really big thing and remains a big thing for a lot of people wasn't as big for us as it was for others. But I know certainly there were a lot of shifts needed. But what it did mean coming out of the pandemic, and we doubled down on that commitment on hybrid, by the way, and amongst lots of different companies doing lots of different things, either remote all the way to return to office. So we doubled down on that, but it meant that what we did offer had to be hybrid friendly as well. So one of the more recent things we did was change our childcare policy, which used to be very specific to nurseries around our Reading office, where I am now, which had very few places. So if you weren't based around here or you didn't get a place, it didn't really help you. And we've got employees around the entire country. So we've changed that now to a childcare reimbursement program, which is nationwide. It's open to any registered childcare provider. So our employees simply pay for their childcare at any one of these providers, and then essentially expense it back to Microsoft up to $2,500-3,000 per year per employee. So it's far easier for them. It's far fairer. It's far more inclusive, and it serves the needs of more of our parents in a much better way. But similarly to Corey, we also have the ERG that I mentioned before as well, and that is growing every week. It's over 1,000 people now, and that really has specific communities in it, from mums, dads, adopted families, single families, children with special needs, splendid families, so many groups, and our employees get a huge amount of support from each other just being part of that group. So there's the policy side to it, and there's also the kind of company employee sentiment as well.
Yeah, it's something we see a lot, is like policy is really important, but you have to have the cultural change and the role modeling from senior leadership to go along with that as well. And Harriet, I know that you've been really instrumental in setting up the employee resourcing group at BAE around parents. I'd love you to share a little bit about that development in the recent years.
Yeah, so I've set up the Working Parents group within BAE Systems, and it supports all of BAE across different sites. Certainly from my perspective, when I returned from maternity, I found that access to policy and understanding what provisions were available was really important, but also having a community to talk to other parents who are working about how you navigate and balance that work-life balance. So the Working Parents group enables working parents or prospective parents, people who are thinking about becoming parents, or those at the later end, grandparents potentially as well, to get together and talk about how are we using the provisions and any changes that we can implement as well. So working really closely with the business to update policy. So we're getting the best out of it and supporting the working parents as a kind of a collective group.
I love that, and I think it's been amazing to watch the development of who's considered part of that working parents group and families. And you mentioned grandparents in there, and we've got gay couples who are now able to access all of the same resources, single parents who are able to access things maybe they weren't able to before. And I think that inclusivity has been a massive part of it. And Corey, Tom, are you seeing the same kind of thing in your employee groups that are focused around parents? Is the diversity increasing there too?
Yes, I'm absolutely seeing that at Camunda, where there's that diversity element that's being implemented into all of the policies that are being put into place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned some of the groups before, and I won't list all of them because I don't have time, but they're growing each and every week. And there's a new group for, I think the latest one is our kind of 11 to 18-year-olds, parents of 11 or 18-year-olds, because that's a very specific age group that demand quite a lot of help, and the parents are sharing experiences there. We've got work to do as well. There's lots of learning we need to do on as these groups become more diverse. We need to make sure that the policies keep up to date and remain inclusive. So where you see a policy that once said maternity and paternity, well, that's not the right language for everyone. And primary caregiver and secondary caregiver might be a way forward, but again, might not work for everyone. So that's the constant dialogue that we're having in conjunction with these resource groups to make sure we are as up to date and as inclusive and transparent as possible. I love the grandparents idea. Harriet and I very briefly discussed that in the prep for this call. We don't have one of those at the moment. So I took that to the ERG here yesterday, and that's a conversation that we'll start up too. So super useful. Thank you.
I love that. Already change happening from off the back of these conversations. That's amazing. And in terms of the policies, so we've got these employee resource groups, which obviously feels like an amazing first step if anyone's thinking about how they can better support parents and families in their organization. But what are the kind of maybe an innovative policy or program that you particularly are proud of that you brought in from that? And Tom, I know that you were talking about the childcare reimbursement, but also in the prep, we talked a little bit about this concept of a well-being suite. I'd love you to go into more depth on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So childcare reimbursement was a big one, but there's a whole suite of other programs that we offer for a lot of our employees, right? We don't build things specifically for one demographic, but parents, of course, and family is a big one. So to pull out of some of the things from that wellbeing suite, and I will warn you, I may go dark in a second as the sustainability project kicks in, the lights go off. But there's a few things that we offer our parents. So we have we partner with a company called Maven, which you may know. They really do a lot to support aspiring, expecting, and new parents. We're about to extend that to include counselling sessions for children up to 18 as well, to help not just the parents, but the children too. We have an employee assistance program called Spring Health, a fantastic resource. It gives everyone in an employee's family 24 free counselling sessions every single year. So if you just need someone to talk to about something that's happened this morning, or if you've got a real critical mental emergency, then we've got people who can get on the phone very, very quickly to support those employees. And so many of our employees are using that and talking about using that, which is vitally important to role model, as you said, and I saw in the chat. So those as well. And we work with a company called, partner with a company called Rethink, who offer counselling specifically for parents. So any parent-related matter too. And then return to work is a big one for us, and quite rightly, we focus a lot of our effort and resource on that too. We have return to work coaching for mums coming back, or dads, or whoever it may be. We have breastfeeding facilities on site, and we have, as I mentioned before, flexible working arrangements for everyone as well. So look, there's loads of policies, there's loads of programs, but Beth, I'm 100% with you, which is they are great, but unless you have a culture that lives up to them and allows people to experience them in the right way, then they're not really going to help the lived experience of your employees. So the example I always use is an IVF policy, right? Ours is, I think, pretty good in that it says you can take reasonable time off to have consultations, appointments, treatments on IVF, however many you need. Now, luckily, that is supported by all of our employees, our managers, and our leadership. But if you went into that conversation with that policy there, and actually you felt you were being judged for using it, or you felt that you'd lost a career opportunity because you took that time off, or that people were looking or treating you differently, then your lived experience in that company isn't the supportive one that we want. So yes, the policy is great, but perhaps the culture isn't there. So it's just as important, if not more important, to live the espoused culture that you want, as it is to kind of come up with and introduce these policies.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to, I think that phrase lived experience is such an important one here. And Corey, I could see you nodding along to a lot of that. I'd love to understand, how have you been tackling this? What are the sort of best policies that you think you guys have put in place, and how has that fed through into the culture as well?
Yes, piggybacking off of what Tom just said, with it truly being embedded into your culture. So Camunda offers flexible time off. We are a remote first culture, and we also have our flexible time off. And I know when most people hear that, they wonder, what does that really mean for a company? But what I see us embody here at Camunda is that individuals are really encouraged to utilize that time off to get the rest that they need to be able to reset, especially when you have parents that are maybe returning from a leave and integrating back into the workforce. I also see that our executive team embodies that culture as well, where it's common for them to take blocks of time off as well as needed to reset and to recharge so that they can bring their best selves to work. Additionally, a new program that we've implemented that I'm very excited about and we've gotten very great feedback on is a wellness platform called Modern Health. And so what this is it's a platform that all Camundi regardless of what their situation is, have access to through their benefits portal. And they can log in at any time and search for a number of resources that will help them to tackle any of life's complexities that they might be dealing with at that time. It also offers the free therapy sessions, including career coaching sessions, which I've seen parents take advantage of when they're integrating back into work, maybe getting aligned with a career coach that can help them to tackle some of those nuances.
Amazing. Yeah, it's so important to really understand the nuance that everybody is going through a slightly different experience. And Harriet, I think I'm right in saying that BAE is hybrid, right? As well, you do a couple of days in the office and a couple of days at home. And how have you been providing? What policies have you been providing to fit that environment for parents?
So the pocket that I work is hybrid, and it's really lucky that we've got that opportunity. As a business, we've got lots of policies around flexible working. So whether it's not specific to parents, anybody is able to use flexible working, which I think is fantastic. That it brings in that inclusivity element as well. So being able to get some time to flex your time, be in the office, be at home, and have a working pattern that works for you and your family is fantastic. So that's something that I've been able to use and is available across the business. Which I think with any policy, and it's picking up on Corey's point, with any policy, being able to see it in practice, and I think Tom as well, you mentioned the lived experience of being able to see some of these policies work and how people have implemented them is really important, and certainly for like working patterns as well. There's different options available. There's so many options available within BA of what working pattern is that you can use, and we have the opportunity through the working parents group to hear stories from people that have used different working patterns or that have implemented different policies or used different provisions, which just brings things to life. It helps you relate to some of the policies as well.
Totally. I want to touch on something that you've all mentioned here, actually, that's you're not necessarily implementing every policy specifically for parents. I know that Tom at Microsoft, you guys feel very strongly about this, and Harriet, you were saying, the flexible working policies are not just for parents. And I think this is a really important conversation, because the more that we isolate a specific group into the area of, oh, you need this special treatment and no one else does, the easier it is for them to be treated differently. And was part of the reason I was so glad that Tom, you were able to join this call, because too often I go to webinars about being a parent in the workplace and everybody's a woman. And normally it's the other way around. Most panels you go to, it's a manel, not a panel, and they're all men. But as soon as you start talking about parenting, the conversation is really pushed onto women. And I'd love to understand a bit more. Maybe Tom, you can kick us off with this. I know you've thought a lot about it, around how that the same policies for everyone, but that have parents in mind, has been a big change.
Yeah, I think it's a massive thing. And look, when we had our twins, my wife went back to work after 6 months, and I took 3 months of shared parental leave, which was fantastic for the most part. Right, part of it was rather heavy, but for the most part, it was a great experience to have 3 months away with the two little ones. I certainly wasn't the first, but I'm one of very few that had done that up until that point. And I remember it being quite a nervy experience. Like I mentioned before, the policy allows it, but am I going to be judged for it? Is my boss going to think differently because perhaps the career isn't the most important thing in my mind? Fortunately, none of that happened. It was a wonderful experience. But yeah, when we put these policies together, they are absolutely aimed at everyone. They're not aimed. There's one or two that are maybe very specific, but it's really important for us that our policies, as I said before, are not only leading edge, are not only up to date, but are very inclusive. Precisely because we don't know in the future who might need them and why they might need them. So it's really important that me as a dad, or my colleague as a mum, or whoever can dip in and out of these policies as they need them. But I think it's crucial that when we're designing them, we don't allow ourselves to fall foul of the the unconscious bias that is in all of us. that makes us naturally think this is a policy for this group of people. That bias won't ever go away, but we need to be able to check ourselves. And when we do, we find that we create things that are far more inclusive and work much better for everyone. And the flip side of that, of course, is your employees are far more engaged, far happier, and you're less likely to lose them.
Totally. Corey, Harriet, would either of you like to add on to that?
Yes, kind of piggybacking off of what Tom said on the biases that exist and can be created without you even realizing that they're there. I find that Camunda does a really good job of tackling that. So we offer mandatory unconscious bias training for all employees. We also have inclusive hiring practices training that we're implementing so that we're making sure that none of those biases are existing when we're making decisions around hiring or any of those things. Additionally, as a PBP, I do a lot of coaching with leadership to make sure that when these types of instances come up where maybe they need to talk through a flexible working arrangement or a policy that might be specific to a certain individual, making sure that we're handling those conversations appropriately and we're really looking through all avenues.
Yeah,
definitely.
I'd just like to add as well that in terms of like what BA systems offer, we do unconscious bias training, very similar, I think, to Corey's company. I also think the use of the ERGs is also really important. So we've mentioned that the policies, to be inclusive of others. We've had a really good opportunity within BA to tailor the policies and the provisions not for parents, but to make it as beneficial to parents and as beneficial to a wider group, and using the ERGs, so the employee resource groups, and getting them in to look at the policies and provide that opportunity for building in more inclusivity, and make sure that we're covering as many groups as possible, and that they're worthwhile and useful to as many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've touched a little bit on inclusive hiring here, but I'd love to understand, internally as well, and from a promotion standpoint, I think a lot of my friends are having children at the moment, and there's a real fear, like, if I take 9 months off or a year off, which they really want to do, what happens then? Does that mean they're behind in their career? And I don't always think that in itself is a problem. I think most people can understand, I've been away for a year, maybe there's going to be some catching up to do, but it's more the unknown. Like, you've got no idea how you're going to be treated, what's going to happen. How do you deal with these kind of conversations from training managers who are promoting and hiring, and how do those kind of conversations happen?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah,
I'll do my best. So I echo a lot of what Corey and Harriet have said. We also, it's mandatory for everyone who's a Microsoft employee to go through unconscious bias training. As I said before, we know it's in all of us. We know we will never lose it, but we can make people aware of it and check themselves when it comes to decision making like this. For the type of topics that you're talking about, Beth, I kind of call them those moment in time. Am I going to get promotion? Am I going to get the bonus that I wanted? Those big things that are so important for people. We focus quite heavily on manager capability and in empowering and enabling our managers to have very open and honest conversations. So they do all the inclusive hiring training. It's mandatory as a people manager to go through that, and encourage for any of our interview teams to go through it as well. Where we really focus in on is what we call rewards time. So once a year, we look at someone's impact, their performance essentially, and we decide on their rewards, what salary increase might they get, what bonus may they get, what stock award may they get. And that's a conversation that can quite easily, bias can start to feed into that, because someone's situation, they may have been off or they may have done something else. Every year before that, around that time, every manager goes through rewards training, and that has a big section in it on bias. So again, we're not asking them to remove it because that's impossible, but we're reminding them to check it. And when they go through that training, they then go into what we call a rewards discussion. That's with their peers around a table, and they say, right, this is why I'm giving this person this based on this impact. And they benchmark, am I offering the right reward for the right level of impact, and are we doing that fairly? One of the things that's worked really nicely that we've introduced recently is during that discussion, someone is appointed as what we call a culture advocate. So part of their role in that discussion is to look out for any accidental bias that may have creeped into the conversation, or anything that maybe doesn't live up to our values. And it's all assumed good intention. We know it's going to happen, but it's just another check and balance that says, actually, do you know what, you said that? And is that based on someone's performance, or is it based on the fact that she did something else, or we're out on leave, or whatever? So we're just checking ourselves that we're making decisions fairly. And the same occurs for promotion discussions. We do that in a very similar way as well. When it comes to promotions, there's training around bias as well. So it's very, very heavily focused on manager capability for us. And it feels like a lot of training when you go through it, but you can see the benefit of that when you get into that discussion, and the output is a much fairer outcome for everyone.
Yeah. I love that. It reminds me of that brilliant Maya Angelou quote of, when you know better, then you do better. And I think, we're all walking around with, our backgrounds and our experiences, and you can only know what you know. And being in an environment where you have the opportunity to do unconscious bias training and really kind of test yourself is, for a manager as well, like, what a brilliant learning opportunity and way to progress your own career. Harriet, is there anything you'd like to add around that kind of training or the progression in terms of parents?
I think within BA we do, there's a lot of process, a lot of structure around how we do like promotions and end of year ratings of performance. So they go through like fairness checks. Don't necessarily have a culture advocate, but I think that's a fantastic idea. Having somebody there just to check and challenge, I think is really good. We have obviously a group of people doing fairness checks on that, which is really good. So it does prevent to some extent that unconscious bias. I think also the thinking about like promotions and you kind of mentioned about somebody going off on leave and then coming back. I think the unknown is really scary at any point within your career. The unknown of what will happen, whether you were to become a parent for the first time, or become a parent for the third time, or be a grandparent and have to have flexible working. What opportunities can you keep, and how does the business support that? And certainly within BA Systems, we're pushed to have development plans, to have open conversations with managers. If people are going off on leave, for example, for maternity, then there's structure around the conversations and guidance and some training for managers to make sure that they know what they need to do to make people feel comfortable when they're going on leave, and then when they're returning as well. And something within BA that we're setting up and launching very soon is something called Parental Buddies. So this is where parents who have similar experiences, for example, somebody going off on maternity, could be paired with somebody else who's returned from maternity, or somebody who's developing within their career, and can be seen as a role model, can share that good story or that good experience with somebody who's maybe feeling a little bit nervous about going off, and having that prevent the development within their career, which I think is fantastic. It's all about role models, isn't it? And I think that's really good to see.
I love that. And about not feeling alone in something, right? You're kind of entering this. And I love what you said there around like, it's a new experience, whether it's you're becoming a parent for the first time or the third time. It's still the first time you've had a third child, right? Like it's a totally new experience. You've now got more kids than hands. Like that's a totally new thing. And it looks different every single time. And I also think your point around the manager training is so important. Like a lot of us will have experienced that moment where suddenly you're managing people and no one's told you how to do it. And now you have to figure that out. And that's so difficult. And Corey, I'm going to come to you with the next question, but I just wanted to remind everybody listening in that please put a question in, whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn, wherever it is that you're listening, we will see your question wherever you post it. So please send us questions, and we will, in about 10 minutes time, start coming to questions from the audience. So definitely get yours in. I can see one in there already. So thank you for that. So Corey, the next topic I'd really like you to start us off on is around how do you handle or address the very particular challenges that are faced by either single parents or people who have additional needs within their families, or any sort of non-traditional family structure? Like what kind of things can people do to make sure that these people are supported and empowered in the workplace?
Great question. Similar to what others have mentioned, our benefits and policies are built out to be inclusive for all so that individuals don't feel singled out in those moments. However, what we've done is we've really partnered very closely with managers who have team members that come forward and share concerns around, hey, maybe I'm a single parent and I need some additional help or need to flex my working hours. And our people business partners work very closely with managers to coach them through how to navigate those situations where they can build out what works best for those team members. So, for example, it's not uncommon to see some individuals when they first return, maybe working blocks of hours in the morning, taking a little bit of time off to have lunch with the kiddos or do something in that terms, and then coming back and working a longer block in the afternoon. So we really try to take the approach to build out that flexibility within the workday where you can build that out around what supports you best and supports your families best.
Amazing. I think that we see it in our data when we look at people's working preferences and working needs, that flexibility comes up again and again and again, particularly for parents. Tom, that's a similar question to you. I think you've done some amazing things with structuring the employee resourcing group, particularly around this. I'd love you to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just add a kind of what Corey said to the first part of the answer, because so much of that resonates to what we do here. This is where our employee resource group really does make a huge difference, because like Corey, we don't have policies and procedures specifically for people that are single parents, lone parents, blended families. We are inclusive of all. But we do have a very specific community within the employee resource group that looks after each one of those communities. So single parents we have blended families as well. And so there's a huge amount of employee to employee support, experience sharing, idea sharing, often resource sharing, and pointing people to places or to people that have really helped others in the past as well. Now that's really powerful at an individual level, but because it's a community, it also has a voice. And that voice then can be told to the business, to the HR leaders. So I, as a sponsor, will kind of step in and help them share that, so that they can start to affect change if and when they feel it's necessary, or if there's something that we can do better to support them, they can tell us as well. So that's really, really powerful for us. And yeah, there's a huge amount of support available for them in all of the other wellbeing suites that I talked about before. But that employee resource group, and it's led by two fantastic people, one of which happens to fall into that community and is extremely passionate about it. They really do come together on top of all the other work that they do day to day, right? So it's a group of people that really care, and they really do make a difference to the lives of each other, which is amazing to see.
Yeah, I think that's a great shout out as well to people who, spend their time running these groups and contributing to the culture. This is something that people are doing on top of their jobs. It's such an amazing piece of, almost like employee activism, getting involved in how the company should look and feel. I have a lot of admiration for people who get involved in these groups. And Harriet, I'd love you to talk a little bit around how you've made sure that all of your policies are inclusive. I know you've spent a lot of time really thinking about the language in particular.
Yeah, so we work really closely with our other employee resource groups. So we have 7, I think, within BA Systems, covering lots of different communities. So utilising our employee resource group that supports the LGBTQ plus community has been really good to help make sure that we are inclusive. We have a group available for people with disabilities, hidden or visible disabilities. And again, that's something that has been really important to us to make sure that any policy and provision we have is inclusive. So, for example, BA Systems have recently put a provision in place for carers leave, which I think is fantastic, because it sometimes gets overlooked when you have people, employees within your company who are looking after their parents or family members, and just again giving them that support. And I think the other really important thing that we've been doing is doing it consistently. So we don't look at a policy and then leave it. We continuously review it. So BA Systems at the moment are going through a really big policy review. So we've updated a lot of policies, like, for example, our paternity leave, recently have a pregnancy loss provision as well, which is fairly new. So they're doing a wholesale review, but that's something that's continuous. So there's always opportunity to see what provision we can change and how we can better align, with any legal change as well that may be coming.
Totally. And again, comes back to that point around we have to keep things inclusive, and as the world changes and as our companies change, and we have to keep updating these policies. And I think that's such an important point. You can't just sort of set and forget and come back in 10 years' time, because then you will definitely be behind. Tom, I'd love to talk a little bit about the caregivers leave that you got at Microsoft, and it's a really comprehensive package, I guess maybe we could call it. But I'd love you to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, we're really lucky. The company is investing heavily to make sure that people that need to step out for whatever care reason they need to step out for can, and feel supported financially and also emotionally as well. So every employee gets 4 weeks of fully paid caregiver leave every year, which is a fantastic amount, and people are very, very pleased with when they need it. And you don't know when you're going to need it, right? But when you need it, that support's there in the background. I think crucially the definitions that we use are very broad. So the definition of things like to care for a family member are extremely broad and extremely inclusive, and inclusive of all family structures. So going back to single or blended families, that can be something that people find particularly useful, because we make sure that, for example, they and anyone else would be included in those policies as well. So as a package, to use your phrase, that's what it looks like. And within that employee resource group, there is a carers chapter as well. So we have people that lead a team of folks who are passionately involved in caring themselves quite often, and also allies to other people that are caring too.
Yeah, amazing. And I'd love to kind of continue down this line. It can be, I really liked what you said, Tom, around like, you never know when you're going to need these kind of things. And, life can be pretty relentless sometimes. And especially if you're responsible, not just for yourself, but for either children or elderly parents or someone that you have a caring responsibility for. And Corey, how at Camunda are you thinking about the mental health of parents who are in your workforce, who might be facing some really challenging situations?
Great question. So I know I mentioned it earlier that we have Modern Health, our wellness platform. One of the things that Modern Health provides is for caregivers, whatever that may be for you, resources that support both your physical and your emotional well-being. Because many times when you're taking on the responsibility of caring for someone else, you inadvertently stop caring for yourself, and you forget to do that, and you don't put yourself first. And so what this Modern Health platform does is it gives you resources that help you to establish a healthy self-care routine that you can put into place while you're taking on these additional responsibilities. So through that platform, you can get one-on-one support. And there's also the option to attend what's called circle sessions. So what these sessions are is the first session really serves as a listen and learn, where you bring forth, okay, this is the problem that I'm dealing with, so I'm targeting this circle session that I'd like to attend. And then the second session is where you do a deeper dive with Modern Health, and you start to really build out through a skill building workshop some of these things that you can take back into your daily life that can help you to tackle these things.
Yeah, amazing. And Tom, it sounds like, if I'm reading this correctly, Tina, who I think works at Microsoft, has said that you have something similar around a circle call. Could you talk
absolutely.
a bit more about that?
Hi, Tina. Tina's one of our wonderful ERG leads. She leads our maternity and maternity chapter, and is the lady that often comes to me after these circles with specific asks and cases that she's come across. So it sounds very similar to what Corey's saying. These are safe spaces within our ERG chapters for people to go and essentially say, I'm experiencing this. is this normal? Is this right? Has anyone else experienced it? Or simply ask a question, has anyone else done this? Or does Microsoft do this? And it's a safe space, it's confidential within the circle. And then from there, they'll get either instant advice, or as I said, one of the leads, like Atina, will come to me and say, hey, we've got a lady who's returning soon or going out soon, and she's experiencing this, and it doesn't feel like this is the way it should be for them, or this isn't the lived experience that I had when I was about to go away or when I was off. And then I can, and as a kind of plug into the HR team, go and find either get an answer or kind of sometimes just hurry things up a little bit. But yeah, it's very similar premise to what Corey was saying, but it's a little bit of a safer space maybe than having to raise it with an HR team or raise it with a senior leader when people might not feel comfortable doing that. They'll feel much more comfortable doing it in one of these circles, perhaps.
Yeah, I love that. Something about that peer support of this is someone who has been through what I've been through is a really powerful way to allow people to be vulnerable. It can be very vulnerable, talking about what's being a parent's very personal thing to bring into the workplace. And Harriet, I know that you've got a really extensive mental health support program at BAE. I'd love you to tell us about that.
Yeah, so definitely within BAE, mental health and well-being is really at the forefront of the company, and it's threaded through everything. So the way that we work and the policies and provisions, everything is threaded with mental health and well-being. We have a dedicated employee resource group for mental health and well-being, and they host regular calls, regular engagement. We have mental health first aiders, mental health champions across the business as well, who are there to support people to go and ask questions or signpost. And we have lots of information online. We also use a tool called Unmind, which is a platform that you can get on your phone as an app, or you can log on online, and it has lots of different tools about how to deal with different situations, and some of that self-help that Corey mentioned, it brings that to life. And it's a really good tool because it's available to BA, but you also get free passes for family members and friends, which, thinking about parents, if you have a two-parent family and maybe your partner is struggling with mental health, maybe postnatal depression or something like that they will benefit from the Unmind app. You can share that with them, and they get access to that resource, which I think is great. And we have an employee assistance program as well. So I think there's lots of avenues of being able to be supported and feel supported from a mental health and wellbeing perspective.
Amazing. So final question from me before we go to some audience questions. So if anyone wants to submit one, you've still got time, and we will get to those in a second. But time to make some predictions. Crystal balls at the ready. Tom, we'll start with you. How are you seeing the future for working parents? What kind of things do you think are going to become more important over the next few years?
Yeah, it's a great question. I won't share too much about what we're thinking about. The benefits team will probably come and hunt me down, and I'll get in all sorts of trouble. But look, in general, there's a few things, and I'm proud of myself. I haven't mentioned AI yet, and we're 43 minutes in. So for a Microsoft person, that's quite impressive. That's going to fundamentally change how we all work, right? And I'm not going to tell you exactly how and why, because we don't know yet. But it will certainly play a huge role in how people engage with work, how people do work, where people do work. So we're going to have to really adapt to that. And every employer is going to have to, as their employees want more AI and use more AI and learn more about it, we're going to have to adapt all of the things we've talked about today to suit that. But I think there's a few things that will certainly continue to be topics or become louder topics. One of those is probably no supplies flexible working. Doesn't seem to be a slowdown in the want for that. So companies are going to have to get used to people, or more used to people working remotely. Is it remote first? Is it hybrid? Is it return to office? Companies are going to have to make those decisions. Parental leave specifically, we've touched on it today. That I think will become a noisier topic as well, and something employers will absolutely need to act on. I saw a question about equal parental leave, for example. That's a very hot topic that a lot of companies are trying to wrestle with. Childcare support will be a big one. Anyone that's been through that or knows someone that's been through that will know it's increasingly expensive, eye-wateringly expensive, and people will be looking to their employers to say, help me with that. Like, have you got partners? Can you offer subsidies? How can I get through this huge chunk of money every month? And to Harriet's point a second ago, mental health and well-being, I think, will continue quite rightly to become a bigger and bigger topic for companies. And like Harriet said, not just for parents, but for families as well. And how can employers really support both the parent and also the family as they go through anything they may go through? But they're probably the key things. And a lot of that will come down to something we spend a lot of time on, as I mentioned it before, is that manager capability. How can a people manager be equipped in the best possible way to spot some of those things when someone's having an issue or maybe isn't quite happy to speak up, and how can they help them through them as well? Because that's not easy. You're going to get people that are being very open and vulnerable with you and sharing something that you may have zero experience of, and that's quite a daunting thing to take on. How do we equip our managers to make sure that they don't have to have all the answers, but they can have the conversation in the right way?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for that. Harriet, what do you see becoming more and more of a thing in the future for working parents?
Yeah, definitely echo what Tom has kind of set out for the future. For family leave, I think is going to continue to become really important, looking at the whole of family provision and what's provided. I also think the opening up and looking at how we support parents getting into business, getting into roles and recruitment, I think is also going to become really important, because there is a totally untapped resource out there of parents who if we are provisioning part-time hours, or we've got part-time contracts, and we're being a lot more open around remote working or hybrid working, I think that's definitely going to open up that pool of talent that's available. So I definitely think that's going to be quite an interesting space, and see how that's developing in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I heard it called the inclusive economy, and I just think that's such a great way to think about all of the individualization of work, of different working styles, different patterns, different options that really allow more and more people who want to work to access work. I think it's amazing. And Corey, what would be your kind of prediction, or what do you see happening in the future with working
similar
parents?
to what both Tom and Harriet said? I really see this evolving to be centered around needing to create even greater flexibility, just due to changing family structures and there really being an emphasis on well-being in the workplace. I think that companies are going to need to make an effort to be more flexible in their offerings and really do a deep dive into what their employees need. So one of the ways that Camunda is combating that is we do post-benefits offering surveys, where we really get feedback around, did this work for you this year? What iterations would you like to see? And then we take that, and where we can, we really try to apply it each year as we do our open renewals and renew our benefits for the following years.
Amazing. Awesome. So I'm going to start going to some of the questions that we've had from people watching. And I love this question. I've not actually had someone ask this before on any of the webinars I've hosted. Morris has asked, is there anything that you've seen not work well when you've trialed it, either where you work now or elsewhere? What's been kind of the biggest policy fail where you've tried to do something and it's not worked?
I could jump in on that one. I don't have a specific example of something that's not worked well or failed, but what I can say is that it's not always one size fits all. So really taking a step back and making sure that you're taking that holistic approach of building out something that can be inclusive for all is what I find to be the best approach in making sure that something works. Because when you try to do it where it is trying to tailor to just one group, it could have a trickle-down effect where it doesn't work for others.
Yeah, I'd align. I think, and we kind of touched on this earlier, anytime we're making assumptions about what's right for a group of people, we're probably wrong. Or we may be partly right, but we definitely won't have the full picture. So where I've seen things perhaps not go drastically wrong, but things that have then needed to be course corrected is where we haven't asked or we haven't listened. And if we ask and we listen, we're far more likely to get it closer to right first time. And that's why I think Corey touched on it at the end. One of the biggest thing for me is you've got to know your employee base. You've got to understand, who they are, what they want, and be very open with that kind of questioning, and then come up with a proposal, and then ask them if it works. Right? Consult with them. We have a group of people called One Voice at Microsoft in the UK. It's kind of, I guess you would call them representatives of the employee base. We ask them if we're going to change a car policy or a childcare policy, what do you think about this? Will it land? And where I've seen things not work is where companies or myself haven't done that, and you've made assumptions and it's just gone a little bit awry.
Mm. Yeah, that's very much what I've seen in BA is the most successful things that we put in place are successful because we've reached out to the employees, we've got that feedback, we've engaged them during that development or the process. I think as well, having sponsorship from senior leaders, if you don't have that, then that's just one really quick way that something isn't going to work, is if you don't have that sponsorship, which for BA is really good because every ERG, every employee resource group, we have a sponsor, which means, we have that line to make sure anything we are implementing, we have that top level cover and support.
That's amazing, and leads us right perfectly, as if we planned this, into our next question, which is the first question that Graham has asked over on YouTube, I think that is. And Graham's asked, how can you get leaders to buy in and set an example so that employees feel safe utilizing certain policies, whether that's paternity leave, whether that's flexible hours? It goes back to that policy versus culture question. I'd like to kick us off with this one.
Yeah, happy to jump in. I think that there's a few things. First and foremost, the basics, right? Highlight the benefits. How will this policy, this thing that you're trying to do, improve employee satisfaction? And therefore, the word that tends to resonate quite well with senior leaders is retention. Right? This will keep people in your team. And if you can show that and you've got the data to back it up, fantastic. If you can back it up with success stories of how it's worked in the past, either from other places in your company or in different companies as well, that's probably going to land quite well too. But I also say engage them in the process of it, right? Rather than present the finished article and asking them to say for their own buy-in. Bring them in nice and early. Ask them what they think, what they would maybe change, or what suggestions they may have, and you'll find, I think, that they're far more engaged from that point and more likely to get the buy-in.
Amazing.
I think I would just like to add as well that for those leaders, I think it's also important giving them opportunity to have a safe space as well, to get them to buy into it, but also be advocates and role models for some of these policies. For example, like using shared parental leave. Certain senior leaders maybe feel a bit nervous, but what you were saying earlier, Tom, a bit nervous about what the impression would be to maybe the employees. And I think giving them support and awareness about the benefits and kind of reflecting back some of the reality of people's experience and the positivity around that is really important.
Yep. To add to that, I'm a huge advocate of data-driven decision-making. So when I'm talking with leaders about these topics, I'm really bringing to them the data on how this can support their business to grow as well, because when employees feel supported to take the necessary time off to spend with their families and to recharge, they're going to be able to bring their best self and their most productive self back to work. And that's better for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always really helpful to be able to connect this to business aims and business goals. And I think that's what I've loved most about learning about a lot of these initiatives, whether that's for parents or whether that's for diverse groups of any kind, that actually it lines up. What is good for people is almost always good for your business, and being able to demonstrate that that connection is so powerful to do. So we're going to go for one final question to finish us off. We've got, sorry, the name hasn't come through, so I've just got LinkedIn user, anonymous LinkedIn user. How can smaller companies support parents, especially if they're not big enough maybe to have an ERG, or they've not got big budgets, big networks? Like, what kind of things can you do as a small company?
I think the first thing to do is ask the question. So open a dialogue with your employees to understand exactly what it is that they need, because that may differ from company to company, and obviously will differ from person to person. So you don't necessarily need a full employee resource group. You just need to understand what it is that the parents or the groups, the employees need, and how you might take that forward and implement something.
Absolutely agree with what Harriet said. Start the conversation and dig deeper to see what it is that you have the resources to be able to do.
Yeah, I think employee resource group sounds big, grand, and like you've put a ton of work and money into it. It can be 2 people, it can be 2 parents within a company. That is all you need. People that share a similar experience, right? So it could be you and the person that's sitting next to you that both have kids. That can be the start of your employee resource group. And to Harriet's point, just ask the question, who else is going through the same as me? Know the employees, have some kind of listening system, feedback structure in place. I'd say for those smaller organizations, just pilot something, right? And it doesn't have to be massive. It can just be, we're going to offer this little bit of flexibility, or we're going to change this little policy, and then again ask, did it work, did it not? Often I think there's people are scared when it comes to sensitive topics like this to kind of dig in, because we're not experts, right? If your day job might be completely different, so go work with someone who is. Go ask a partner, connect with one of the guys on this webinar, go and have a chat with someone who might just know a little bit more than you and be able to offer some advice. And then the final thing, and this is one of the big learnings that we've had, is you've got to tell people what you do for them, right? We have this all the time where you go, we use the assistance program. What program? Oh, you can have 4 weeks. No, I didn't know that. So unless you tell people what's available to them, they've got no way of knowing. So whatever it is you do, big, small, or anywhere in the middle, tell people and let them know that it's awareness, and then just ask them. I think that's the biggest thing. But employee resource group is honestly 2 people. It's all it needs.
I love that reminder. It sounds very grand and a bit scary, but actually something that anyone can implement. Yep. Well, thank you all so much. This has been really informative. We've had amazing comments in across all platforms. Actually, it's been amazing to see how engaging this conversation has been for people, and I really can't thank you enough. It's been amazing to learn from you all, and anyone watching who wants to find out any more, you can follow all of our speakers on LinkedIn. Go and find them, ask them some questions as has been offered, and keep up to date with all of the great work that everyone's doing. So thank you all so much, and thank you